Good morning everybody and welcome back to another video. Today we are talking about my second miscarriage. If you recall, in the last two videos I talked about how this channel was going to be changing, and then I also talked about my first miscarriage that happened a year and a half ago. Today we're talking, like I said, about the second miscarriage that happened less than a month ago, so it's still fresh. However, so that I don't forget any key points, I decided to take some notes on my computer as per usual, so I will be referring to this quite often if you see me looking down. Before I get into the story of the actual miscarriage itself, I wanted to talk about the events that led up to the miscarriage. If you know me on a personal level, you might know that this year has been anything but easy for me. It's been a lot of, grief, of fear, of just hardship, I guess. In May of 2022, I lost my dad, and not long after, I had to start being tested for breast cancer. And the reason why, before anyone who knows me and is like, oh my god, she might have breast cancer, I don't have breast cancer. The reason why I had to start getting tested for this is because I carry a genetic mutation called BRCA2, and basically the consequences of that is that I have a much higher risk of developing breast cancer in my lifetime. I think it's up to 80% chance of me developing it, and according to the specialist that I see for it, it usually happens around or under 40 years old. For reference, I am 26 as of right now, so that statistic is a very scary one. Now, the follow-up for this, the way to prevent the breast cancer as of right now is to alternate every 6 months between two different tests, one of them being an MRI and the other one usually be a mammogram, but because of my age and because of the fact that the way your breasts are when you're younger, I can't do mammograms, so it is an ultrasound to replace it. So I would do an ultrasound, then 6 months later an MRI, 6 months later ultrasound, 6 months later an MRI, and so on and so forth. And that is the best way of hopefully catching anything at its early stages and being able to remove it if it hasn't gone further, like if it's just a tumor. If it has gone further, then obviously chemo, but obviously catching cancer early is the best way, or your best chances of curing it so that it's not fatal. So that's kind of the procedure that I have to go through from now until one day at 40 I can decide to remove my ovaries, which I didn't talk about, but basically the genetic mutation also puts up your risk for ovarian cancer. So at 40, your ovaries are taken out. Most of the time, the cancer that cancer is not developed until after 40. So that's why they wait till then, and there's no procedure to check up on you every few months or every 6 months, because it's so rare that it develops in women my age. So at 40, once I'm done having kids, that's when it's removed. And then as for the breasts, you can remove them right away. So my doctor specifically said that she would like me to get mine, basically to get a bilateral mastectomy as soon as possible. For her, the ideal time would have been yesterday. But before I get into that, I think I'm going to just tell you guys a bit about what I went through over the last year. May 11th, my dad passed away, as I had explained. Then June 22nd, I had my first visit at the breast clinic for a physical exam. So basically, I had found out when I was 23 when I found out that I had the genetic mutation. The reason why I was tested for it was because my grandmother had passed away from cancer, and she had carried that genetic mutation. My grandmother passed it on to my mom, and my mom passed it on to me. So hence genetics. I found out at the age of 23, but they only start verifying and doing all the checkups and stuff as of 25 years old. So that's why I had to wait until now to start being tested. So June 22nd, like I said, I had my first visit at the breast clinic for my physical exam, which is basically the doctor checks your breasts to see if there's any lumps and stuff. And while I was doing that checkup, she found a little lump that she wanted to check to make sure that it was nothing. So obviously I left there feeling very overwhelmed. I kind of made peace with it from the time I was 23 and found out I had the mutation until now. But at that appointment, for some reason, everything hit me a lot stronger. I think it was also because she told me that ideally she would recommend that I do the bilateral mastectomy. And that is something that I didn't want to go through, that I didn't want to do because, well, body image and also like femininity and all these things. It's all these issues that just come up in your mind, and it's very like, it kind of attacks your self-identity. And there's also the fact of me wanting to like breastfeed my children one day and all these things. So it was very, very overwhelming. Basically, she said that if I want to wait to have children to be able to breastfeed and stuff, then to start having them as quickly as possible, because the longer I wait, the more chances that a cancer develops. And then after chemotherapy and everything, and because I don't want to do IVF, it just becomes more complicated to have kids, and it just becomes an added stress. So I left that appointment very, very heartbroken, very sad. I was crying a lot. And so Jeremy and I came to the conclusion that we would start trying to have children as long as I was cancer-free after this test. So that's it. That was kind of our decision. Life threw us a curveball. I don't know if there's a saying for this. But life gave us lemons, and we decided to make lemonade, I guess. So July 6th, I went for my ultrasound because of that little lump. And then July 23rd, I went for the MRI. I want to talk about the MRI experience because it was extremely tough for me to go through. I didn't know that I had to be injected with anything. I'm not very good with needles. I really don't like the idea of vaccinations or anything being put inside of my body. So I've gotten more and more used to the idea of blood tests because of my thyroid, but the fact of like injecting something inside of me really freaks me out. So yeah, the day of, or maybe a couple days before, I realized that they were going to be injecting me with something, and I lost it, and I almost canceled my appointment. And I just had a lot going on, like in my brain, I guess. I was just like really overwhelmed with all of this. Anyways, I went to the hospital. Thankfully, there wasn't many people. I don't think there was anyone waiting besides me for the MRI. And it took me about an hour of just crying at the hospital and being unsure if I should go in for the MRI or not, for me to finally convince myself that this is something that I had to do. The thing that scared me the most is that there were studies explaining that whatever was being injected, I don't remember what it's called, but it crosses the brain barrier, and anyways, it freaked me out. Finally, in the end, I decided that this was a much better alternative than getting cancer, or what if I had cancer right now and this was my chance to catch it, you know? And my motivation was just that if I ended up pregnant at any point, I wanted to be able to live as long as possible with my kids and to give them a great life with their mother around. So that was the kind of idea that pushed me to just do it. So anyways, finally I did the MRI after lots and lots of crying. It was, I think, 40 minutes of being in the machine. It's very loud, and I just kind of practiced my breathing, just taking really deep breaths and counting, like every time she told me, okay, 5 more minutes, and then the machine stops, I think it was, for like 30 seconds, and then it goes again. I would count 60 seconds for 5 times just to like, while I was doing my breath. And anyways, I got through it and it went okay. Basically after that, on August 29th, I got my results from the doctor. Like I went to see her in person, and I was cancer free. Like nothing had developed and everything was all right. So that's when we decided that we were going to start trying for a kid. To get used to the idea, we went out and like got some children books from when we were kids. We also got like a little tutu. We started like setting up the crib and stuff just to get our minds like used to the whole idea of having a kid, because it's a very big adjustment. I always said that having a child, I think 30 years ago, would have been so much less hectic and like scary, because I think that most babies were accidents, and there wasn't like, you didn't have to make this conscious decision of having a kid. You just got pregnant and you're like, oh well, now I have a baby in my tummy, you know. Whereas now, because of birth control and so much like awareness and science around how our bodies work and everything, we can control whether or not we fall pregnant. And I think that because we have to consciously decide to do it, it can be so stressful. So we tried for 3 months. Nothing worked. It wasn't working. I was really disappointed. I thought I was going to fall pregnant the first month, because I've been off birth control for so long and I chart, so I know exactly when I ovulate and everything, but I didn't get pregnant. Then the 4th month is when I got pregnant in December. The first sign of me being pregnant was that I had a tiny little bit of spotting of implantation bleeding, I think 3 days after I had ovulated. And at that point, because I do spot every single cycle, I was like, crap, I'm spotting again, I'm not pregnant. But then as the next day came, the spotting just stopped and went away. And then when I was really close to getting my period, I still wasn't spotting. And I was like, this is really, really weird, because I spot every single cycle. So when I realized that, that's when I took a pregnancy test. So on December 7th, which was day 27 of my cycle, I took a pregnancy test and it was positive. Then I told Jeremy in like this kind of semi-cute way. Then December 8th, the next day, day 28 of my cycle, I started having cramps in my stomach, but they weren't like the cramps that I had the first time that I miscarried. So I didn't think too much of it. I was just thinking, well, my uterus is expanding, so this must be normal. But they were pretty significant, and I think that I just wanted to hold on to hope that it was fine, especially because I hadn't spotted before. And I was just thinking, no, like, it's nothing, I'm pregnant and I'm fine. Also to say that I think deep down I've known for a year now that my cycle wasn't healthy and that I would have a hard time getting pregnant. But, you know, everyone tells you that it takes time and not to worry, not to think about it too much, and that, like, chances are you're fine just like everybody else, you know? So I think that mentality, or that those ideas started getting to my head, and I was kind of like, well, what if I am fine? What if I'm just overthinking this? What if I am looking too much into my chart and stuff? So yeah, just wanted to point that out. So the cramp started, then I took another pregnancy test on December 10th just to make sure it came up positive again, so I was still pregnant. December 12th, so basically on day 32 of my cycle, I started to spot. And when that started, obviously my heart sunk. And I was really upset and everything. So I went to the clinic and I just talked to the receptionist. Like, I took my appointment for my 8-week, like my first checkup, whatever, with the doctor. But then I just like talked to the receptionist at the fertility clinic, and I was telling her what was happening and my history with the miscarriage. And she told me to rest as much as possible, that if I miscarried, it would just pass by itself. And yeah, that was basically what happened. So I went home and I rested for 3 days. I didn't get much out of bed. And although I was spotting the whole time, I kept trying to convince myself that it was maybe just normal, because I know that other people spot sometimes throughout their whole pregnancy. So I was really trying to hold on to hope. But then on December 14th, day 34, I went back to the clinic. No, actually I called and got an appointment to see the doctor. Well, it wasn't a doctor, it was a nurse, I think. But to see the nurse, and the reason why was because the blood had started to turn more bright red, and the receptionist had said that if it turns bright red, it's like, then that's when you start to worry. So I went in to see the nurse, and she sent me for blood tests again, like the same thing as last time. By the time I got home and the day went on, I ended up bleeding a lot more, basically miscarrying as of December 14th on day 34. So that would make me 4 weeks and 6 days, so almost 5 weeks pregnant. Yeah, so I started miscarrying then. And then I went the next day, December 15th, for blood tests. I went on December 20th for blood tests. And then my doctor called me and told me that December 15th, basically, there was still some HCG hormone, the pregnancy hormone in my body. But then as of December 20th, there was absolutely none left. So, well, obviously there's always a little bit, but like it had dropped quite significantly. So she confirmed the miscarriage. And so, yeah, that's the story of my second miscarriage. Obviously I cried. Obviously I was disheartened. I was disappointed, but I expected it. I knew that I had problems with my cycle, and even though everyone told me that it would probably just be fine and that I was just overthinking it, like I knew deep down it wasn't going to work until I fixed the fertility problem that I was having, like the problem with my cycle. I think that it's really important for women to chart their periods and their whole cycle, not just their periods, obviously. I think that it's really important to take any symptoms or anything that seems a little bizarre, to take that and really give it the significance that it deserves, because it can mean a lot, you know? If ever you're thinking about, okay, maybe I want to start charting, taking charge of your fertility is the best way to learn. It's a book. It's a huge book, but honestly, because it's a lot of graphs and stuff, it's really quick to read. And yeah, so that's basically my second miscarriage story. So I think next week I'm going to talk about my personal graph, what's wrong with it, and how I use that to kind of like diagnose my problem without seeing a doctor, because I have to have multiple, not like 3 or 4 miscarriages before I see a doctor for that. Okay, just a quick little information session here. Basically, my doctor, like my family doctor, told me I have to have like 3 or 4 miscarriages before she'll give me before she refers me to get blood tests and everything for the hormones. I'm having another appointment with her at the end of the month, and I'm hoping that she will send me now because I have my charts and everything as proof, but we'll see. I don't want to wait to have 3 or 4 miscarriages, so if not, I'm going to go to the private clinic. I'm on a wait list to be seen there. What was I saying before that? I think I was just saying that in my next video, I'm going to talk about how I know that I have a hormonal problem, how I can tell from my chart and everything, and then what I'm trying to do to fix it as I wait to see a doctor, and like kind of what my choices are. So yeah, thank you guys so much for being here, for going along the journey with me. I guess it's quite a difficult one. Like I said, it's been a really difficult year, but I do have hope that I'll be able to heal whatever is going on and that things will get better from here. I'll see you next Friday with another video. Bye everyone. I just went for my results for the ultrasound and MRI, and I have no cancer. First screening, well, technically a couple of screenings of this whole journey thing, and